So the argument that we can't act because the UN hasn't authorized it, that would be a good argument if the reason the UN didn't authorize it was because they didn't know if the Syrian government had been responsible for the chemical weapons, or they didn't know if the chemical weapons actually had even taken place. But we know that's not the reason the UN isn't going to authorize it. The reason the UN wouldn't authorize it is because of Russia. It's because of political reasons, not.
Well, and it's not just political; it's geopolitical and it's petropolitical. Let me just push back on what you said. As Congressman Grayson pointed out, he didn't do it on this program, but he did it very well on television yesterday. The intelligence that John Kerry has shared with us, the intelligence that was presented in the classified briefings and that has been declassified as well, suggests that members of the Syrian military knew about the gassing. That does not mean that it was ordered by the Syrian military, or it does not mean that it was ordered by Bashar al-Assad. But even if it was, it's not our business.
Well, I disagree with that in the sense that I think the United States does have a role, and I think international law.
What role?
The role of preventing humanitarian disasters. Now, if that
then you've got half the world right now living on less than $2 a day. You've got 2 billion people right now on this planet who do not have access to clean water or sanitation. You got 50,000 children a day dying simply because of dirty water. Why are we not doing something about that? If that's our role, Tom, if our role is a humanitarian role.
Tom, I listen to you all the time, and I know deep down you don't. I don't know if liberals will buy this argument, because you could make this argument for everything. Domestically, why help the poor when there are middle class people struggling? Why invest in food stamps?
No, you're misinterpreting. You're either creating a straw man or distorting my words. I'm not sure which, but my point is, Michael, that if we decide that we should have a humanitarian role in the world, and I think we should, then we should have a foreign policy that is designed to heal people and to feed people and to promote democracy. But we should not have a foreign policy, in my opinion, that is designed to kill people and blow things up, unless we've been attacked. And we have not been attacked by Syria.
So just to make my final point, which is that there are very good arguments not to invade Syria. For example, the oil pipeline arguments you've been making. If our actions and our rationale aren't actually legitimate, if they are to increase our oil or to increase geopolitical reasons, then it's a completely illegitimate invasion or use of force. But if our actions are for humanitarians, or if they really are for humanitarian reasons, I think
it's
liberals
still
would be
illegitimate. It is still illegitimate. Even if we are going in there because a bad guy did some bad things to his people, to his good people, to his innocent children, and whether it's 1,400 people killed by poison gas or 4 million refugees and probably 100,000 dead, 4 million refugees displaced. If we go in for humanitarian purposes with our military, where does it stop? I could make a very good case, Michael, and I would have no problem. In fact, I'd be pleased to make that case that we should be providing security to the refugee camps in Jordan and in Turkey. We should be providing food and medicine to the refugee camps in Jordan and Turkey. We should be doing everything we can. I mean, many of these refugees are now starting to go back to Syria because the camps have become hellholes. The water's no good. They're starting to have cholera epidemics. It's just horrible stuff is going on there. We should be providing security and food. I'm all about that.
Tom, would those measures have prevented, let's say, the Rwandan genocide? I mean, I think we all agree that we should have used military force in Rwanda.
I do not agree with that.
Made a big mistake. You don't? Okay.
No.
Well, I think many liberals would agree that the United States, if we can do something, we should.
I believe that had we had a rational foreign policy in the first place, that after when the British, and in the case of Rwanda, the Belgians, as I recall, pulled out of the region, had we gone in and strengthened democratic institutions and built schools and helped build the infrastructure for both business and democracy, the Rwandan genocide never would have happened.
Definitely. That's 100% true. But the question is, In this world, when there's a genocide taking place and we didn't take the
so let's take, we have limited amounts of money. Let's take that money, and instead of putting it into Tomahawk missiles, let's put it into building those schools. Let's put it into building those hospitals. And right now, in the present emergency, let's put it into building refugee camps. I mean, I was in northern Uganda in 1980 and 1981, literally building refugee camps. I helped build a refugee camp of refugees, the Karamojong people from the Karamoja region of northern Uganda, as a consequence of Idi Amin's men having gone through and slaughtered every male over the age of 10 and raped most of the women. And we had all these women and all these little babies and all these very young children. And it was an absolute disaster. And I was literally, on several days driving a bulldozer. We were building mass graves because people were dying from kwashiorkor, from starvation. We should be not building mass graves, God forbid, but we should be in there feeding those refugees. That's important work. That's God's work. But dropping bombs, taking out, I do not see how in asserting ourselves militarily when we have not been attacked and we have no legal basis for it is going to advance the interests of the United States or of peace in the world. And those are my two criteria. Michael, thank you for the call. I understand your outrage, your moral outrage. Everybody's upset, rightfully. But what's the appropriate response?